All right, solo episode. I hope you have been enjoying the intro music that I've started to underlay on the episodes. It's kind of cool. If I guess I chose it, so obviously I think it's quite cool, right? A bit of drum and bass, a bit different to some of the usual team tunes I hear, which are more kind of EDM or even jazz. But anyway, it's a bit of me. It's a bit of me. But hopefully you've been having a great week so far, and you're looking forward to hearing my thoughts, feelings, and all the rest about my competition that I just previously competed in. So I competed in Ab Series 21 2 weekends ago. By the time you're listening to this, and it was my last powerlifting competition for a while, right? So if you go back a few episodes, I talked about how it was going to be my last powerlifting competition for a couple of years as I start venturing into the bodybuilding world once again. So I competed in the Pro Am division. So the Pro Am division is the division just under the pro ranks, and on the day it was the co-main event to Clash of Titans 3, which Clash of Titans 3, if you're unfamiliar with powerlifting, Clash of Titans 3 is, well, the Clash in general is like a total only meet where Abs Powerlifting or Abs, Jay Farrant, who is organising the Abs series, is getting the best of the best in the world over to compete in a warehouse in Finglas. So you had like the likes of John Hack was competing, you had Andy Huang, or that huge Asian guy on Instagram. You had Ken Cooper or Jin Jerkules. You had Justin Zottel, who is the ranked number one powerlifter of all time in Canada. You had a number of other amazing athletes. You had the likes of Zach Myers, who ended up winning. You had Nicholas Dupreez, who is just the most jacked person I think I've ever met. So, you had a lot of big boys competing. There was like 7 1,000 kilo totals, which is probably one of the strongest like lineups ever. That's ever been happen in Europe for sure. It could definitely be up there worldwide. But it was an amazing spectacle. Like, honestly, if you're a fan of powerlifting and you haven't been to like an ab series, I definitely recommend going to a Clash event. It's going to be held in April again next year, and it's like, just as a fan of the sport, it's crazy to see guys that strong. So you have some of the best in the world competing there, and then my card was just below it, right? So we performed just before the big guys graced the platform, and I was in a pretty stacked division. So I think there's probably only, yeah, I think there's only two other guys who are probably natty, Scott Dean and Kevin McDermott, and you had a number of other dudes who were just amazingly strong. So the way the Ab series works, if you are unfamiliar with it, so it's broken up into divisions versus weight classes. So you have like Division 2, which is pretty much entry level, and anybody who's under 400 dots, they can enter into that. Division 1 is 400 dots or over to 459 dots, and then the Pro Am is 460 dots or more. So it essentially kind of groups you into people of kind of similar caliber. Now, because the Clash was on, and the Clash was like the total only event, the Pro Am was, and it's the exact same as last year when I competed at it, it was a lot more stacked than the Classic Pro Am would be, right? So Classic Pro Am, you're kind of probably not having too many guys who are over 500 dots, especially if you are going to compete at the event where they're going to have the Abs Pro, right? Because the Abs Pro, that's like a kind of another similar huge event that the Ab series run, where people are going to be invited. It's an invite only meet, and if you have like I believe it's 500 or more, or maybe 520 now, then you could potentially get an invite to compete. So essentially, again, it's just a best of the best, but it's determined by dots, right? So this division that I was in, pretty damn stacked. You had a couple of guys who were like 550 dots, which is an incredibly elite level. And then there's me here, who was like, I think my dots were like 462. So pretty big disparity still, even though it's in the same division as some of these guys. But anyway, I wasn't there to like compete against them realistically. Like, there's a lot of guys there who are far stronger than me, far stronger than I probably ever will be. My aim was essentially to run my own race, and my two big goals for the meet was to squat 300 kilos and deadlift 300 or more. So how did the day go? Well, yeah, it was my worst performance that I've had so far on the platform. Unfortunately, I ended up going 5 for 9. Uh, the worst meet I had before that was I had one competition where I went 7 for 9, and then pretty much every other competition I've done has been 8 for 9 or 9 for 9. So yeah, it was the first time I ever failed a squatting competition. So I'll go through the attempts in a bit, but I failed 2 squats, one on technicalities, one on strength. Yeah, it was a tough pill to swallow, because like naturally enough, you never nobody trains to underperform on the day where it matters. But I guess this is sport, right? And it just happens from time to time. Now, I guess I want to go through a little bit about my kind of prep leading into this, and how the day itself went. So at the very, very start of the month, I flew back to Ireland. So I had a couple of clients competing at the April Open in Urban Barbell, and I want to be there to support them. Like anytime I have the ability to fly back from Marbella to handle my clients in the powerlifting competition, I absolutely will. Like ultimately at the end of the day, it's a big day for them and it matters to them. I want to be there. They like I know I'm their coach, so I know how they lift. I know like how they move. I know what like a first, second, third attempt looks like for them. And like I know from my own experience, it means a lot when like your coach is there on the day to kind of ease your nerves and just to call the shots and just like to allow you to focus on the lifting. So anytime I do have the availability to fly back to Ireland for a competition to handle my clients, I absolutely will. So I flew back to Ireland to help them at the start of the month, and it just made sense to just stay in Ireland then until the actual competition that I was competing on was held, because it was like 2 weeks after. So I finished my prep in Ireland, and the Urban Barbell meet was great. Right, the two lads did amazingly. They both set PBs. They both like PBs in total. They both like podiumed, which was savage. They both competed on the same day, which was Sunday, which also happened to be my final heavy squat day. I was meant to be doing my last heavy squat, and doing it the day before didn't make sense because I would have been doing my last heavy squat in wraps alone, which would not really have been like the best call from a safety like standpoint. And then there was not a chance I was going to be doing my last heavy squat on Monday after 12 hours of handling, because usually after a day of like that I'm absolutely bollocks. I'm sure anybody who's been at a powerlifting meet and has handled clients, just because you get stressed, you're on your feet all day, you're fucking loading bars, stripping bars, it's a very, very tiring day. But nonetheless, I had to get my heavy squat done. Despite being tired, I decided, what, when the meet is done, I asked Ian to keep the gym open, or just when they're kind of closing the place down, and asked him if I could do my last heavy squat. So with the help of my good friend Lawrence King and a few other lads who were there to kind of spot me, but Lawrence, he welded the wraps onto me. Like so for the last few weeks I've been self-wrapping and putting wraps on myself, and wrapping yourself and getting somebody else to do it is completely different, right? Because you can never get the wraps on as tight as somebody else will be able to get them on you. I've been, I guess, like by the standard of Lawrence, I guess, my wrap would have been a 5 out of 10 for the entire prep in terms of tightness and probably how much I was getting out of it. That day, Lawrence, he showed me what a 10 out of 10 is going to be like. There's no kind of number aim really on my last heavy squat day. It was just a case of kind of going in and kind of seeing what was there, especially after a long day of handling. But I managed to work up to 292 kilos, which is was a 10 kilo training PB. And I was very, very surprised at that, because like honestly on that day, if I loaded 300, I probably could have done it, especially with the wrap that was given. Yeah, that was like, a huge, right? Confidence naturally enough high, right? If you smoke a weight like that and you have a goal of like hitting like 7.5 kilos over, you're like, okay, cool, it's on. So the next 2 weeks then, hit my last heavy deadlift. Last heavy deadlift was 2 days after I did a wrap squat, so I hit 290. My heavy sub prep was 295, but the 290 I was nursing a little bit of a back strain after the heavy squat, and that back strain cleared up pretty quickly. Wasn't kind of carrying that into the meet or anything like that. It it was fine, right? The nigga went away after a few days. I was still able to train. I just have to be mindful of load. So I was like, okay, cool. I hit 290 there with a back strain. So I'm pretty confident that, like, anything over 300, like once I'm fresh, is just gonna fly off the floor. So that's the last heavy lifts done. Bench. Bench is bench, right? I'm glad to see the back of bench press. But I hit 160 is my like top lift of prep. 160 of Jesus Christ, I've hit that more times than I can actually count. So we're not going to delve into bench press all that much. So that brings us up to meet week. So meet week is the week where I am going to be cutting weight. So if you listen to the last episode where I talked about the mock weight cut that I did and how I only got about 3% after kind of manipulating a number of variables. So this time around, myself and my coach Melissa, we had made a few adjustments to see if we could get a little bit more off, right? Like, it is 20 ab series, you do have a 24-hour weigh-in, so that means you have 24 hours to recomp and regain any weight that you lose through acute weight manipulations. And being a dots based competition, it can confer you a little bit more of an advantage. Now, as I said, I was not there to compete against anybody really on dots, because even if I did have my best day ever in terms of dots, I would have maybe bet one person. So my aim for that was really just like, okay, like if I push a weight cut, how much can I lose? Okay, because previous weight cuts I've done, I've barely been able to break 3%, and it's something that I'm just like, is it just the way it did it, or is it me? Is there just different ways that my body works relative to other people? So we kind of did a few different things, right? From Saturday, which was 7 days out from the competition, I started to increase my water just a tiny bit. Okay, so I started to increase my water up to about 9 liters. So I usually have about 7 to 8, so it's not that much of an increase. The Sunday I increased up to 12, and then from Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I had 18 liters of water per day. I know, a lot of water. It's unfathomable. In You know what I'm trying to say. Unfathomable for most people to think that you could drink that much water, but I can drink that much water. Was it nice? No, definitely wasn't nice. But 18 liters for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then the Thursday, which was the kind of weight cut day, we actually increased my water intake. So usually on a weight cut day, you're going to be drinking pretty much minimal water. So like the kind of recommendations generally, like, you might have like a liter to a liter and a half, or like 15 mils per kilogram body weight. So for me, that will come to 1.5 liters. The day before the weigh-in, I actually had up to 4 to 6 liters. So the reason for us doing this was because one thing we have noticed, and it's been the exact same this time I did my weight cut, the previous time I did my weight cut. So all the weight cuts I've done where I've manipulated water, the day of the cut, you are meant to continue excreting water, right? Your body, you're meant to have kind of tricked your body in a sense with all the kind of loading of water, that your body should be continuing to output urine at the same rate that it would even when water is lowered acutely. This does not happen for me. Like the last few times where I've cut down to like a liter of water per day after the cut, I literally got to the bathroom like maybe 2 or 3 times. Like I barely got to the bathroom. So our kind of working theory was, okay, maybe my body just it notices these kind of sharp drops in like fluid balance really, really, really quickly, and as a result, I just need to have a little bit more kind of water there to keep that quote unquote trick my body that I should be safe to continue output fluid, right? Because like naturally enough, your body does not want to die from dehydration, but your body also doesn't want to have you you're running the risk of getting like hypernatremia, which essentially is where you have like too much water in your system relative to the amount of electrolytes that you have there, because that can be really, really dangerous for you. So dehydration and then overhydration kind of have equal risks, right? So your body essentially has like very, very tight regulating mechanism to keep this in check, so that you are not going to run the risk of either of these, right? Because your body wants to maintain homeostasis, which essentially is dynamic equilibrium of bodily processes to have you sustain like a kind of a normal pattern of living. Okay, when I could water again, don't urinate that much, so we brought water up to about 4 to 6 liters. It kind of helped a little bit. Definitely helped a little bit, but not all that much at the same time. We definitely went bathroom a little bit more on that day, but it didn't really seem to have much of an effect. So other things that we did alongside this So we also did a gut cut, right? So a gut cut essentially is you reduce the weight of the food which is in your diet. So pretty much stripping out any fiber sources and making your diet very, very compact. So like on a typical day, if my diet like weighs like 2.5-3 kilos or something like that, well then on the day of the go cut, I'm trying to get that down to like as little as possible. Like, you know, so, like I was pretty much having up to, you know, less than a kilo of like solid food throughout the go cut. So we did a go cut for myself for 3 days. So they go cut. It's 3 days, wasn't it? Yeah, it's 3 days where essentially I pretty much had a liquid diet for those 3 days. Like I was pretty much having like eggs, ice cream, whey protein, and oil. They were pretty much my food sources. It wasn't pretty, it wasn't nice, it wasn't enjoyable, and I was very glad to see the back of it. But it definitely helped, right? Now, alongside that, what we also did was we restricted sodium. So in the previous mock weight cut that I did, I I think I kind of fucked up this part, right? Because Melissa, my nutritionist, she did have some salt recommendations on the actual sheet. What we did prior to the weight cut is I got a drug dealer scales and essentially just weighed out all the salt I add to food, as well as tracking the salt that is in, or tracking the sodium from foods that's in macrofactor. Now we added the two of those together. Now I think I kind of tracked my sodium intake wrong the first time around, because when we did the mock cut, I was actually eating more salt, more added salt, and then as well when it actually came to the actual sodium restriction, I more so incrementally reduced it. I forgot that I actually used stock cubes in my rice, and stock cubes actually add sodium. A shocker. So this time around, when doing the sodium restriction, a little bit more on point with this, right? Again, have my drug dealer scales, was keeping tabs on the sodium intake on macrofactor, and just ensure that the sources I was taking in, I just cut out all added salt, right? All added salt was cut out, so I dropped it down things quite substantially, and then just ensured my sodium didn't go over a certain level. I think I was having like maybe 600 milligrams per day for a couple of days, when usually my intake is, you know, north of 8,000 milligrams. So had 3 days of sodium restriction as well. Again, not too nice when you are fucking hiking water up. You're eating like ice cream and whey protein and chocolate and oil. Yeah, it's not a fun place to be. Like the Wednesday, right? So this is the day before I did the actual cut of water. That was the day I probably felt the worst. So that day I had pretty much a headache the entire day. I felt like crap in terms of my stomach just with the food it's having, and even a lot of the foods it's having were just like, you know, I actually felt sick. Like eating 8 eggs with like loads of butter and oil. It is not nice. I don't care what anybody says, especially when you don't have salt. Like, you know, salt. Oh my god, it's fucking rancid. But anyway, so we did all those methods, and then the day before the actual weigh-in, so the Thursday, I went to the sauna. So on this day, again, minimal water intake. Sodium has been cut at this point for 3 days. I haven't really eaten any solid food in 3 days too, and in the evening time I went to the sauna. So the goal was to spend as long as I could in the sauna, and, you know, then just kind of leave it there, like trying to go up to an hour. This was tough, right? And there's multiple times when I was trying to like in the sauna, and I was just staring at my watch. I was like, how much longer here can I take? Like that was genuinely mentally challenging, and I kind of felt almost like a little bit kind of worried for my health. And like, look, it is dangerous. It is dangerous to do sauna when you are restricting fluids and you are also restricting sodium, because you could very much run the risk of like having a heart attack. Like, and this has happened to powerlifters before, you know. So it is something that you do have to be quite safe with, and as well ensure that there are people around, because if you do it alone and like you have a heart attack in sauna, like, geez, like what happens there? Like, you know, you just die, you know. So thankfully there was plenty of people in the sauna with me, you know, who were probably didn't know that I was in a wake up. At least, if anything happened, they'd be able to say something to you know, maybe somebody in charge. But that was very, very tough. I managed to get maybe like 45 minutes in the sauna done, and yeah, each time I got out of the sauna, I had to like take a 5-minute break. So pretty much I did like 4 10-minute rounds, did like a 5-minute round then as well to finish off. And each time I'd take like a anywhere between a 2 to 5 minute break, just to kind of get my wits about me, because after coming out, like, when you're dehydrated, you kind of feel almost a little bit delirious. So the next morning, which was the day of the weigh-in, I woke up and Melissa was like, you know what, if you wake up and you feel a little bit, you feel okay, you can go and do another sauna if you can. So I drove up to Ballymun. Their gym was closed. It was Good Friday. Their gym was closed. Their sauna was closed. Bollocks. Drove over to Finglas. Their gym and their sauna, same company, was also closed. So I was like, fuck's sake, I want to do an extra little bit of sauna. I was feeling motivated. I was feeling good. The deadline, like the finish line, was very, very close. So I was like, you know what, fuck it. I can bear the little bit of pain here. So what did I do? Well, in pure fucking neurotic, fucking insane powerlifter fashion, sat in my car, heating turned up to the max, fans on, and my Columbia jacket on, trying to sweat. So then that didn't work all that much. Like, I definitely sweat, but like it's not a sauna by any stretch of imagination. So weigh in comes, and step on the scales, and I weigh in at 95.9. So 95.9. And at the start of the week, I was high 100s. 101 was my highest weight of the week. So that's what, 5 kilos, nearly 6 kilos of a drop. And yeah, look, I was very, very happy with that, right? Because like that's near the 5% mark, right? So that's way, way, way higher than the 3%, right? Because like the 3%, I went from like 99 to 96. So this is pretty much like 101 to 95.9, which is pretty much 96 too, right? But the 95 makes it sound lighter. That was the result of the weight cut. Now, I guess I want to kind of mention here, right, that one thing that this really highlighted to me is that for me, for everything that I had to do there to get that weight down, to get down to like nearly 5%, it was a lot of work, and it was really, really challenging. And if I had to compete 2 hours after that weigh-in, I don't think I could. So for me, in the future, when I am competing in IPF, this gives me good information to know that, hey, you cannot afford to be 5% over your weight class if you want to do an acute weight manipulation the week of, and be pretty safe to, number one, perform, but also to make weight, right? Because like ultimately, the more percent over your weight cap you are, the more you roll the dice with, like, things going your way or not going your way. And then as well, ultimately at the end of the day, you have to get on the platform, you have to perform. So for me, like, I know now that, like, if I want to have like a handy week coming into competition, I could probably do 3%. I could be 3% over my weight class. So if that's like 105, I could probably be somewhere that's like 107 to 108 kilos. If I am competing in 93, I'm probably okay to be up at about 96 or so kilos, and I should be fine to compete. But any more than that, and I'm really going to be kind of like either pushing myself very, very hard to cross the finish line, or could end up like just not being in a position where I'm actually able to perform at my best. So yeah, so weight cut was very, very successful. Really, really happy with that. And then essentially the rehydration, the recomp process started. And like the recomp process for me is pretty simple. So I had a solution with cyclic dextrin in it, had some essential amino acids, had some creatine, had some diarylite. I had 1 to 2 kind of mixtures of that in about like 1.5 liters of water, so about 3 liters. And then just a case of having simple food for the day, right? Like I've made a mistake in the past with overindulging on these like recomp days, and it's been a detriment to my performance. I remember the very, very first time I did something like this for a 24-hour weigh-in, and I ended up going to Tesco after I weighed in, and I was like, like after you do one of these, like you have cravings, or at least I do have cravings, and like you're just like, oh, I haven't had this in a while. I bought myself like a packet or a box of 12 Krispy Kremes, fucking loads of Muju, and some other shite, and I ate myself sick that day. Ended up like got fucking tired before I went to bed as well, and ended up like going to bed like stomach rock as like hard as a rock, and waking up the next morning like feeling as if I had been out on the piss because I felt hungover. So and then naturally that day I had a shit competition. So that was my second other shit competition. But anyway, this time around, kept it simple, just the exact same way as I did for my weight cut last year. So, things like chicken and rice, things like Rice Krispie squares, things that sit well with me, foods that I'm accustomed to. And just at no point kind of like eating to the point of discomfort, just essentially kind of eating my usual diet to a degree, but still with a little bit of kind of lower volume, so like less fruit and veg there, just to help ensure that the digestion time was on point, and I was going to be absorbing all those nutrients pretty readily. So next morning, competition day comes, and I wake up and I'm 100.9. So 100.9 on weigh-in day. So that is recomp. Boom, successful. Woke up the next morning, felt great. Really, really, felt great. Had a great sleep. Probably one of the first times in a while that I've went to sleep on a night of a competition and have been like thinking for hours about how I am going to do. Just in case of I'm confident in my abilities, I'm confident in my preparation, and I was excited to try my best to do my best. So had my usual breakfast, which I have before every time, before on my morning training session. So the day of the competition, I pretty much treat it like a training day, So I'll have my usual breakfast, which often is a pre-workout meal, right? A little bit of certainty here in this like pre-workout meal. It's just like okay, this is like routine, this is ritual, this is something I eat all the time. I know it digests well for me, I know it perform well, I know it's a lot of calories, and it's like on competition day, you don't want to fuck up too much in regards to your routine, right? So wake up at the same time, morning coffee, read, all this kind of stuff I'm doing, and then then once I eat, it's pretty much time to go to the venue. So when I go to the venue, what I bring with me is I have a couple of water bottles filled up with essential amino acids, as well as some cyclic dextrin. Essentially, just using these to have continuous carbs coming into my body. Even though I'm doing 9 lifts, so probably don't need that much. But the powerlifting events, they run on for anywhere between 2 to 3 hours, and then as well the food I'm taking in, because you're in such a heightened stress state as well, you're in this sympathetic overdrive like all day, because you're so amped up in such a simulated environment, but also you're trying to get yourself to a place where you perform your best. So when I have things that are going to be like easy to kind of digest to my stomach and nothing, and as well, if there's anything that I could do from a physiological perspective to like help with muscle accretion or anything like that, then I'm definitely gonna do it. There's probably less. I'll be completely honest. There's way less applicability for using essential amino acids than there is the cyclic dextrin. I just like how essential amino acids taste in my cyclic dextrin, because they're flavored and they have a lot more punch than the likes of the cyclic dextrin. So it's definitely not a necessity. It's just something that I like to do. It's definitely not evidence based anyway, for sure, right? So I'd have that, and then I have what else did I bring with me, or did I bring with me on that day? So another meal that I brought with me to have, or the meal I brought with me to have after I finished squatting into bench, I had chicken and rice. Yeah, very very boring, but chicken and rice, a bit of honey and a bit of chili oil. Super simple, digest well, and it's gonna be something that's gonna time me over between bench to deadlift, because before deadlift I don't eat all that much. I have like two rice Krispie squares. That's pretty much all I eat in comp day. There's no need to be eating tons and tons of food on competition day. Ultimately, at the end of the day, you're going to be doing 9 lifts, right? The flight is going to be over in 2.5 hours. How much would you usually in a 2.5 hour window anyway? I think a big pitfall I see with a lot of people is they are like, oh, it's comp day, and it's usually people in the beginning of sport, right? They're like, oh, it's comp day, and they bring like boxes of muffins and fucking like heaps and heaps and heaps of jellies and just loads of shit food, which ultimately is like you're not going to perform well in those. They're going to sit in your stomach. You're going to be stressed. You're going to be shitting your brains out. So you're better off just keeping it simple and just keeping it light, just like have enough there to kind of get you through the day, and then you can enjoy whatever food you want after the competition. So moving on to the actual lifting, right? So We have our openers submitted, right? So it's going to open on 265 squat, 150 bench, and 275 deadlift, right? So warming up for squats, all going well. Happy out, hitting depth as per my handler, Alice Cremens. Shout out. Everything felt quite good. Really, really happy with how the squats are moving. So I was like, okay, cool. No effect here for the weight cut. Body's ready to go. Let's get it. Got my opening squat. I got one red light for depth. So I was like, need to watch that out. Need to watch out for that on the next one. So second attempt was 285. Hit 285. Felt really good. I completed the lift. However, I got one red light for depth and one red light for not locking out my knees. So when it comes to squatting, you can get failed for a number of different reasons. So one, naturally enough, is going to be you miss on strength, right? So that's going to be one. But then you also have the likes of depth, right? So depth means that the top of the hip crease must be below top surface of the knee. So I didn't hit that on one side, and that would give you a red card. Now there are other cards that you can be awarded. So there's going to be a blue and yellow card. So if you miss a lift in competition, you ever see in the judges on the screen usually, there'd be like the red lights, and then underneath that there'd be like different colors. So one of the colors I actually got was a blue on that squat on the 285. So a blue can sometimes mean that you're kind of failing to get like a proper upright position. So like when you reach the top of the lift, you might not be able to kind of stand fully upright essentially and have your knees locked. So the knees locked one is a little bit harder to judge. I'd assume, especially in the likes of knee wraps, because of how much it kind of makes the knees look a little bit distorted. But that's one of the red lights that I got. And I don't think it could have been the other infractions. The other infractions for a blue card could be a double bouncing in the hole or a downward moving of the bar. So, a little bit disappointed with that one, especially being my first ever red light in competition. But it is what it is. Like, there's, some people are giving out about the referees in my flight for squats because the board was a sea of reds. But from my point of view, like, if my lift was undeniable, I wouldn't have gotten the reds. So there's no point kind of blaming judges about that. I clearly didn't meet their criteria, and that's okay. It just means that the next time I squat or come out for my next attempt, I need to make sure of it. I need to make the lift undeniable. So even though I missed the 285, and usually in this scenario, if I had a lifter, or even for myself, most of the time, I would just say, take the lift again. Repeat the same way. However, considering I'm not going to be competing again in powerlifting until maybe 2028, maybe 2029, I don't know when the next time I'll be on the platform is, I said to Alex as we came out from the actual like the failing the 285 essentially, he's like, what do you want to go? I was like, go 285. And he looks at me, he's like, are you sure? And I was like, nah, just go 300, right? So the reason I just went 300 is because I'm not going to get the opportunity. I wasn't going to get the opportunity to load that again. And I knew that even if I hit the 285, that at the end of the day, I would be really, really, really annoyed that I didn't back myself to hit the 300. I'd be really annoyed that I'd have to go the next few years wondering, was it there? Could I have done it? So I said I'd go for 300. 285 move well. It should be there. Again, confident in my abilities. I hit 292 in training. I was feeling good on the day. And Lawrence was able to wrap me for the 300 attempt. Lawrence provided his signature wrap in my signature gold knee wraps. And went to the platform, got under 300, felt good on my back, did like my little false on rack, the little kind of pop I do just before I kind of take the bar out of the rack. Because I was like, okay, I need to make sure the depth here. I kind of changed mid-rep how I was approaching the squat, which you don't want to do. Like, the moment you are thinking on the platform, that is the moment that you have fucked up. So I was like, in the middle of going down, right, in the middle of the eccentric, I was like, oh, I'm going too slow here, haven't I? So usually with wraps, you like, it's probably best off that you kind of like hit the hole hard, because you're going to get more kind of elastic rebound out of the knee wraps, just the way they work. And I kind of like tempoed it down, and as a result of tempoing it, and you get less like elastic and like reflex, and Yeah, it was the death of me. So I got kind of like maybe three quarters of the way up. I thought I had it. Like I could feel myself kind of getting past the sticking point, and then it just died. First time ever failing a squat on strength in competition. First time failing a squat on strength in as many years as I can remember. And yeah, like it definitely took the wind out of my sails. Like, I was definitely disappointed I didn't get it, but at the same time, when I got off the platform, like I was like, that was the right call. Like this was I wanted to do that. I wanted to give that a go, and I'm really really happy that I did. Like ultimately at the end of the day, I rather have missed that there than have the what if hanging over my head. Again, if I had another competition in a couple of months' time, I would have said, yeah, cool. I'll settle for the 285 and I'll go for 300 later on in the year when it's an absolute sure thing. But, it just wasn't there. And so be it. So we moved on to bench. Bench being bench, hit 150, hit 160. 160 moved kind of shit, kind of the way it did all prep, to be honest. And I just said, right, let's go up to 162. 165 definitely isn't there, which would be a match PB. So I've taken 162 four times as my third attempt on the platform. This was to be my fifth. So I brought my grip in for this competition, and just kind of getting used to a new grip as well, right? But the reason I brought it in is so I feel like my lockout is a little bit stronger when I actually have my grip a little bit in a little bit closer versus using max legal grip. Got to 162. So unrack the bar. I get I called by the head ref to re-rack the bar because my elbows weren't locked. So to get the start command on a bench press, you need to have your arse in the bench, shoulders in the bench. The bar should be out of the rack and your elbows should be locked, right? You should be locking your elbows and then you get the start command. So mine weren't locked. So I got the re-rack, right? So re-rack, have to restart the whole process of getting myself into my elaborate setup, which is not a very elaborate setup, but get myself in the position again, right? And kind of picking my spot. So get the start command, and it's coming off my chest, right? Coming off my chest. I'm like, oh, this is going up. And then I hit my sticking point, right? I hit my sticking point, and I cannot believe that I locked out that way. I simply cannot believe it, right? I have a video, which I'm going to be making a YouTube soon, or could also be up by now. So go check that out. But I was literally locking out the 162, right, for about 7 to 8 seconds. And it was still moving 7 to 8 seconds. And I tell you, the range of motion that was moving was probably undetectable. It's probably an inch, right? How does it take 7 to 8 seconds to move an inch? you know? But it was the biggest grind I've ever done on the platform. And unfortunately got red lights for it. So yeah, it felt very hard done by. But apparently my glutes came off the bench. So glutes coming off the bench, that's going to be one of the reasons why you could fail on a bench press. So there are same with squat, there's going to be different cards that you can get. So red is you don't touch your chest. Blue could be failing to lock your elbows at the top of the lift or downward motion bar. And then yellow can be missing commands. You could be sinking the bar into your chest. After the press command, you could be having any area come off the bench. So you could have your heels coming off the ground, you have head lifting off the bench, arse lifting off the bench, shoulders lifting off the bench. You could use the rack for assistance, or you could, say for example, if you missed bench depth, that could also be another reason why, if you're competing in IPF, why bench depth being essentially your elbow joint has to be in line with your shoulder joint, and essentially there are any reasons why you can miss a bench press. So arse coming off the bench, annoying. Didn't feel like came off the bench, but obviously did. I'm not going to question the referees. So be it. In my eyes, I locked out to 162, and I was like, if I was in the gym, I'd be like, yeah, that was a good lift. But it just wasn't good enough on the platform. And this is one thing, right? A lot of people are complaining about the judges' calls all day and even into the clash. And one thing that I really, really like about competing at the AB series is they uphold the standard of judging. And even if it's going to go against people that they know, a lot of people who would have been reffing my flight, I know. And there's no place for bias if you're a judge on the platform, right? Ultimately you have to call what you see. It doesn't matter if it's your friend, your fucking family member, or whoever. It's in the best interest of the integrity of the sport to ensure that you're upholding everybody to the exact same standard. And I would not like to have, I would not like to get lift past that was questionable. You know, as much as getting that 285 may have given me that little, like, and making it may have given me the extra little bit of confidence to really kind of go after the 300, like I knew I could have. Like, if it wasn't a good lift and I would have held up to the standard across the board in any federation, then it's not worthwhile getting past. You know, then like the last thing you want is like you have this happen in federations all the time. You have a world record, and you look at the squat, and the squat is sky high, or is essentially with the bench press, right? You get people that are getting a press command after like half a millisecond. And it's like, these are standards that, like, you know, like once we kind of cross the line and kind of infringing on these standards, then it kind of makes the sport like less impressive across the board, right? Because like ultimately we all need to be trained to the same standard and held to the same standard, and that's one thing that the Ab Series does really, really well. Like, you know, they're known for the strict, not for strict judging. They're known for judging by the standard of the actual rules. No problem. You know, I've got no qualms about that. Just again, next time I hop on the platform, I just need to make sure my arse is big enough to stay on the bench. So now we are into the final lift. So deadlifts, you know, this deadlift is my lift, right? Like, it's a lift that, like, you know, it comes the most natural to me. So smoke 275, smoke 292 on my second, and then I was like, you know what? Let's just go 305. Like, let's get a nice little PB. Was the best call? Maybe 300 was the best call. Maybe 302. You can never put the genie back in the bottle once the attempt is in and once you're out on the platform, right? So no point saying like what would have been the best call, but you know, I got the 305 up. You know, I got it up. Like, I got the down command, but as I got the down command, boom, hands, both of them just opened. You know, and you know, I dropped it, and it was, you know, it was kind of like the icing on the cake for the day of performance, for the performance that it was on that day. And like, you know, the grip is usually the first thing to go when you're massively fatigued, and say like the fact that I just like missed that 300 squat on strength, and like the almighty grind that I did on bench kind of fucked me over. Literally, as it came off for like my third bench after booking, extending myself for 7 to 8 seconds, I was like, yeah, deadlifts are gonna take a hit now. But look, I did as best I could on that day. That's like ultimately right, and this is something that I've gotten from being in powerlifting as long as I have. Like, that was my 10th competition, and I have, you know, I've been training for a long, long time. I think something that I've kind of gained is a lot of like self-awareness and like humility in regards to handling days like this, right? Like, even though on paper that was my worst performance that I've had, it was one of the funnest days I've had competing. As in, you know, my essentially home gym. You know, that's where I've done pretty much all my formative years of powerlifting training. It's where I've made some amazing friends. It's where I've made some amazing memories. And, you know, on the day, I had some like great people handling me. Had like had Alex Cremens, he was handling me, and had Jack Kenny, he was also helping like wrap my knees. Had like Lawrence helping me as well. You know, again, you know, it's surrounded by top athletes, and then even into the clash, you know, I got the opportunity to be in Justin Salt's corner and help him for his meet. And, you know, even though it wasn't the day that I wanted, you know, I gave everything my best effort. You know, I was out. I made the calls that I wanted to make. You know, I wanted to give that 300 kilo squat a go. Did not give up on the bench, right? Like I could have easily at any point on that bench just said take it. You know, especially with how much is locking out. But like, when I hearing the people roaring in your ear to tell you to keep on going, like, that just like got me through. And it's like, you know what, this is my last fucking ever. This not last ever. But this is my last meet for ages. Like, just keep fucking pushing. Like what have you got to lose? And the exact same with the deadlift. Like, you know, I did my utmost best for what I could in that day. You know, I couldn't believe actually how fast the 305 moved off the floor and into the lockout. It was just like at the last moment, I was like, oh no, fucking bar just popping out of my hands. But again, I gave it my best shot, and ultimately, it's not going to be my last ever competition. And I think this is like something that a lot of people have to understand when it does come to having days like this, right? Yeah, you go 5 for 9, you go worse, you bomb out. What can you learn from it? What can you learn from a day like that? You know, um, is there anything you could do to ensure you have a better day? You know, from my perspective, like if I was to think about, okay, what could I have done that would have made that day that little bit better? I don't think the wake up affected me all that much. You know, if there's anything that I probably say that I probably should have done is realistically, I probably should have just continued. Well, on the day of the competition, I probably shouldn't have decided that, okay, today I'm going to use a monolift. The entire prep, I have been walking out my squat. That was probably a bad decision on my part. But, you know, in my warm ups, I decided, you know what, let me have a feel for how the mono feels, because when you use a mono, you don't have to walk out the bar. You just have to, you just unrack the bar, the hooks go forward, and then you're able to just squat down. It's a more efficient way to squat. It's probably a safer way to squat. And I've used it before, used monos multiple times before. Probably on the day, not the time to change it. Okay. Who's to say though, if even if I did just like walk out my squat, that I would have hit the numbers I wanted? It's very difficult to tell. So no point kind of stressing out about it. But probably something I'll kind of keep in mind going forward. You know, just to compete how you train. The other things I guess I probably look at is, okay, well, you know, as good as the wrapping I got was, you know, I've been wrapping myself all prep. Would it not have been just a good idea to just wrap myself? You know, because I know what it feels like when I wrap myself. Like maybe, but like, you know, having had my knees wrapped the year previous by Lawrence, you know, it went amazingly then. So, you know, I don't think that really kind of factored into it. I don't think there could have been anything that I could have done better on a training front. To be honest, the training for this meet squat wise was perfect. For bench, I think it could have been better. I think my application of it could have been better. I think there's definitely some things within the program that I was doing that probably weren't too effective, but that's okay. You know what? That gives me valuable information for next time I compete to know this particular protocol that I was using on bench is not the most effective for me. Okay. And that's just like there. That's okay. Here's you have all these options available to you when it comes to programming. These options here, they are not a great mix for you personally. All right. So again, you know, win or learn. The deadlift. I think again, deadlift is one of those lifts where everything went perfectly during prep. It felt great on the day. You know, could have been a case that, you know, there's knock-on impacts from like one lift to the next, just caused me to drop that bar. Grip felt amazingly strong in training. I was like doing long hauls with like 295 for my last heavy lift, pulling on a stiff bar. You know, again, I don't think there could have been anything better that I could have done there, and that's okay. You know what? Sometimes after meet as well, we have areas like this where you're like, there's also some things that I couldn't have done better. I was like, okay, cool. Well, now you got like things that you can potentially look at exploring in the future to do a little bit better. Again, the way I kind of view my powerlifting, the way I view my bodybuilding, the way I view this like journey that I'm on, and I hope it's something that, like, you know, can like try to push on to other people, is like, you know, I say it all the time, I'm gonna be training until I am, you know, 60, 70 odd, right? Like until I'm unable to lift. If I have a bad meet, if I have a bad block, if I have a bad day, like it doesn't really have that much of an impact on me, right? Like it doesn't have that much impact on on me as a person, right? Like ultimately, I love the training element, right? Right. I love doing well. I love the process of getting to the point where I am doing well. Okay. But the doing well part, right? The outcome, me competing on that day and having the best performance possible, it's not the be all and end all. You know, again, I had the best competition I could have ever asked for uh, in December, right? Like one an overall, which, you know, that's like the highest achievement I've had so far. And now to come to here and go 5 for 9 and have a really bad day. And you know what? If you were to ask me at both times, how do I feel? I would have the exact same way. Honestly, I'm not even bullshitting you, right? It's like the exact same. I was happy to, you know, get that achievement in December, but if I didn't, it wouldn't have made a difference all the same. You know, because I do this because I love it. I love turn out to gym. I love working hard, and I love the pursuit of these things. You know, I love the pursuit of trying to get better. Like I love the fact that I still have 300 as a goal, to be able to look in the future and say, okay, that's something that I can try to work towards next time, and I'll be all that sweeter when I do get it. But even once I get to 300, I'm like, okay, well, now what's next? And that's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of it for me. And it keeps me showing up, keeps me hungry. There's never, like, you can only have bad sessions or bad days or bad competitions if you put that actual, like, that label on them, right? I could just view that meet that I had as just a training session, because all it is. I'm turn up to the gym, I've got spectators there, I'm judged on the lifts, and I've got 9 lifts to do. It's just another day in the office. So yeah, look, like, I've rambled on long enough here. I'm not going to talk about my plans for bodybuilding just yet, because I'm going to have that encapsulated in the YouTube series, and I'll probably do a separate podcast for it. But I just wanted to kind of give you a rundown as to how that competition went, my kind of mindset all around it, and how I am in the aftermath of it. Again, it was a phenomenal weekend of lifting. I'm really, really privileged to have been a part of the series growing to where it is today. And like even after, like, to be in a circle where, like, like after the event, meet me, myself, Cremens, and Lawrence, like, going around to the pub to have a few pints with John Hack and Andy Wang and the crew. Like, that was cool. How often do you get to do that? Not that all that much, but these are the doors of powerlifting can open for you. And ultimately, at the end of the day, like, it's one of those things, like, it brings people who have the same interests closer together. And at the end of the day, when you're all sitting around having a few pints, are you there, like, fucking moaning about the fact you went 5 for 9? No, you're not. You're chatting about other shit. You're, like, connecting over the fact that you have this similar hobby, and you're able to kind of find like-minded individuals. And that's, like, one of the cool things about getting involved in powerlifting, getting involved in the community. It's that element. Like, the lifts are one thing, but there's going to be a time when you're going to be past your prime, but you can still be involved in the community. You can still be involved in the sport growing, and be part of, like, living through other people and them having amazing performances. It's cool. It's cool. I like powerlifting. But anyway, right. I'm going to wrap this up here. Hopefully, this has been somewhat of an insightful podcast or something. Maybe there's been some nuggets of information in there. If not, it's more of a phone call podcast, I guess. So, yeah, look, if you enjoyed the podcast, make sure to leave me a rating and review the podcast platform you're listening on. If you are looking to sign up for coaching, of course, I have coaching space available. You can just drop me a message on Instagram, or you could just, like, sign up to one of the links below. Okay. All right. That's it. Chat soon.